Hey boys and girls, welcome back to Munro Live, and we have a special guest. Sean Mitchell's with us, and Sean has had the opportunity to fool around with the Mach-E, and as you know, we put out a couple of little stories about what we thought about the Mach-E as well. And today, what we're going to do is share our experiences. So Sean, welcome to Munro Live.
Hey, thanks for the invitation. Good to be back on the channel, and looking forward to dialoguing about the Mach-E.
Yeah, well, I saw your at least the wrap up anyway from your Mach-E experience. You seem to like it, so let's talk about the things that you liked about the Mach-E.
Yeah, it's clear to me, I can really see Ford's experience in manufacturing, the build quality, the lack of panel gaps, the lack of rattling. I think that really did show through with the vehicle. Now, this was a pre-production vehicle, and so probably likely close to handmade. You can probably talk a little bit more about that knowledgeably, but it was very well put together. I was impressed with it. It didn't feel like an afterthought in terms of how it was built. So if I didn't know it was electric, I would just think it was a car that they mass produce on a regular basis. So that was the first thing that I was impressed with. The suspension as well, the ride was also something that I thought, in my opinion, was better than the Model Y ride experience. So suspension, for coil suspension, which I think that it has, it felt better. It felt like it just took the bumps in hills a little bit better than the Model Y. The Model Y can feel a little bit heavy and weighty. So those are probably my two favorite things. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the critiques and some of the things that I didn't like, but I definitely think that Ford's experience with manufacturing over the past 100 plus years shows through.
Well, I can't agree with you more. I was coming into the party a little on the negative side. No, not a little, a lot on the negative side. After viewing some of the GM entries and stuff like that, and actually coming off the VW ID.4, I was in a real bad mood, and they came up and they said, "What do you think?" And my first impression was the styling. That styling, we had a white car, and the black trim really shows up. And when I walked around the corner and looked at it, to me, it looked like Japanese or Korean. It's hard sometimes to distinguish the two, but when they make a vehicle that they want to say looks aggressive, that's kind of the look that they give it. And I walked around and I looked at the panels, I looked at the gaps, I looked at the general construction of the whole car, and like you say, that's something you get from 100, 150 years, whatever, 125 years, I can't remember how many, but a lot of years anyways of building product. They know how to do it. Now, I didn't have a pre-production. I had a real, production vehicle. It had been used. It was a demo. It was dirty, things like that. But taking that into account, I wanted to get it in a hurry, and so we did, and here it was, and I started looking at it. My first impressions, getting in, it certainly didn't remind me of a Mustang of old, that's for sure. 4 doors, you kidding. I never expected that they were going to come. And then the talk in this town is they call it the Mexican Mustang, or the Mexican Mach-E. They don't like the fact that Ford took it to Mexico, but hey, they got to try and make a buck, I guess. I remembered when somebody at Ford had the bright idea of letting the Mustang be built by Mazda, and there was a riot, a near riot anyway. There were Ford Mustangs parked on every square inch of property on the at World Headquarters. So I was working at finance staff at that time, and I was on the 8th floor, and I'm telling you what, looking out over acres and acres of grass, all you could see was Mustangs, and very unhappy Mustang owners. Nothing happened this time, zero. So the mystique or whatever is kind of like, I guess, disappeared, but it certainly didn't make the press. So it's kind of a different world, I guess.
I think the styling of it is something that I'd like to dive into a little bit more, and probably a very polarizing thing, because this, as you mentioned, is a four-door Mustang, and you know, the long-standing Mustang fans likely have a challenge with wrapping their head around a four-door Mustang. But I kind of like it. I like that it's a very bold move by Ford. It's a very risky move by Ford. But in terms of the design, if a Mustang was going to be a four-door, I think that this is exactly what I did envision in my mind. There are certainly some Mustang cues. I'm not sure if you picked up on this when you looked at yours, but there's very little Ford emblems or Ford signage
Only one.
on the vehicle. Yeah, so I thought that was noteworthy. To me, it says that Ford is really serious about associating this vehicle with the long-standing, very well-respected Mustang brand. You know, the vertical taillights I thought was a nice sort of carryover. I think the front end where the hood meets the grille or front fascia, I thought that was very Mustang-like. The headlights, you know, when you see this car from far away, and I've seen some of them here in Denver already, you can tell that it's a Mustang. You can definitely tell, even before you see the badging. It definitely looks like a Mustang, but just with four doors and an SUV.
Well, I noted the fact that they didn't put the Ford logo on. All they've got really is the pony, and only in the front and back. So to me, it was great. But personally, the Mach-E V, I think it could have gone under its own badge. I don't know why they had to kind of lean on the Mustang. I think what they should have done was hung on. Maybe they're going to come out with another one that'll address you know, the old Mustang kind of two doors and wicked fast. Hopefully they'll come down the road with something like that, a real sports car kind of a thing, and maybe that's going to be coming. But hopefully it's on a smaller platform. I was very pleased with a lot of the stuff that they did on the car. I wouldn't really classify it as a Mustang, but it's definitely the only competitor I've seen so far to any Tesla. I actually had to phone up a friend of mine and say, hey, you know what I said about the Mustang? Kind of skip that. It's probably not another Chevy Bolt. And that was after, you know, after I looked at the car quite a bit. Then, like I say, I wasn't really thrilled with what I saw in the ID.4, but at the end of the day, I think Ford did a good job all around. For a first kick at the cat, I think they did a great job.
I'm really glad. I mean, this appears like they wanted to get this right the first time around, that this was not just a compliance vehicle. This is something that I think that they'll probably build off of, likely, and you know, maybe they'll do a two-door Mach-E electric, and you know, as well in terms of like basic functionality too. An SUV, I had zero issues with getting in and out of the vehicle. Legroom was fine, both front row and second row. Yeah. Headroom was exceptional with that glass roof. You know, trunk room, hatchback room, plenty. The Frunk, which I know you were quite impressed with, and I was as well, even though I didn't go into detail about it because we didn't get any B-roll of it. But I think that's a nice feature that Tesla should and probably will rip off and duplicate. I think it's you put a plug in the bottom, and if you want to put ice in there, if you want to, I don't know, you want to do some cereal and eat it out of the Frunk, you should be able to do that.
Yeah, no, I thought that was brilliant. That's a good example of benchmarking and improving. But I like the fact that Ford benchmarked the Tesla and then improved it by putting in. I mean, what does it cost? One little hose. A duct bill to keep the water from coming back in. A duct bill, it's like a valve, and a hole. Shoot, I couldn't believe. And then that other thing, they could cheerfully have lost that. I mean, for me, I don't see why I would even need that crisscrossing thing. I don't know, but to me, that was a waste of money and time. We've been doing a little adding up here and whatnot. And the ID.4 has 52 ECUs, electronic control units. The Mach-E's got 51. Tesla's got 26. Okay, when you start looking at half the number of connections, half the number, and each one of those little boxes has got to have its own little aluminum casting, and each one of those little boxes has got to have its own feed lines. On and on and on, you see Tesla shrinking everything down, and they keep going back to that stupid parts bin mentality. This is a way that they're going to, again, oh yeah, it'll cost less from an R&D standpoint to do it this way, but it eats up space. That's why ID.4 is what it is. They just grabbed whatever they could grab off the shelf, but it's going to eat up space. It's going to add weight. It's going to add cost for every one of those connectors that you don't have to have. If I'm putting everything on a circuit board, if it all looks like, you know, that, all kind of like crunched together, and the only cost I've got is a couple of leads here. If I've got that, it's going to be a lot cheaper. But they didn't want to spend the money. They don't want to they put a toe in the water. They didn't want to jump into the water. They wanted to put a toe in the water. If that works, let's do, and it'll be something that'll happen down the line. But really and truly, I have a real hard time with kind of like the Mickey Mouse way of getting into business. I think either you jump in and do it right like an entrepreneur, or you kind of like stay on the sidelines. That just the way it works, as far as I'm concerned, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this is the catch-22 of the automotive industry. It seems like you've got legacy, you've got, you know, large bureaucracy, internal politics, that where, and we've talked about this before in previous videos, where you have these just internal politics, and sometimes it's hard to sort of steer the ship into a new direction where things are different, more efficient, and where Tesla's just not working off of that same internal politics. And I'm sure they have some, but they're a new company, and they're not afraid to try something new and fail. But in a lot of times, in cases where you have these internal components like the circuit boards, they're just much more efficient. They're far more dense in terms of what the capabilities are and the processing power, and so, you know, I did watch the ID.4 video you did, and the Frunk was just, it looked like a cluster bomb had gone off in there. It was just, there was everything everywhere. So I know this is not about ID.4 in Tesla, but you know, it's, you do, when you start to dig down into some of those things, which is what I appreciate about what you do, you do see some stark differences there. Yeah,
and quite frankly, making the comparison between the three, the Model, well, I talked about the Model Y a lot, but the Model 3 or the Model Y, pick one, and the ID.4 and the Mach-E, I mean, those differences cost a tremendous amount of money and make a huge differentiation between this model and that model, or that competitor and this competitor. It's just amazing to me. So what would you do if you were Ford? What would you do different there?
I think that's a great question. You know, I will say, sort of, in collective summary, I did speak very highly of the Mach-E after, I think, 3 or 4 days with it. They gave me the standard range, which was a bit of a disappointment. I'd love to test out the extended range. That's my, you know, probably my biggest complaint about the whole experience. But in general, it was good. You know, as I mentioned before, I do have some questions about profitability per car. Are they making this profitable because it's a larger battery pack? And that's a big expense of the electric vehicle. So can they make that profitably? I don't. Maybe they can. Maybe they've already gone through that. I'm sure they have. The thing that I dislike the most about my experience, my driving experience with the vehicle, is this dial on the touchscreen. To me, it was just redundant.
Yeah.
And you know, because some people have told me, well, it's for the driver so that they don't have to look down. They can adjust the volume while they're driving, but the driver has controls on the steering wheel.
Right.
They have buttons and dials, and so you don't really need that dial. And then, you know, is it for the passenger? Because the passenger's not concerned about looking away from the road, so the passenger can use the touchscreen to adjust the volume and features on that. So it's just, it seems unnecessary, it seems redundant, and it's probably an added cost. Like, I just have never seen a physical dial on a touchscreen for any piece of technology. Have you?
No, and actually, it didn't get on tape, but when I first got into the car, they weren't quite prepared. I can't remember, we had to roll the window down or something so they could video. I got in, sat down, and I was looking at the instrument cluster, and then I looked down and I said, what the hell is that carbuncle there? A carbuncle's a wart. It's a Canadian word for wart. I mean, that's a carbuncle, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and I'm turning it, and I didn't have the car on, so obviously nothing's happening. I'm turning this thing, and I'm going, what is this for? This must be for the kids to play with or something. I could not figure out what it was for. It didn't dawn on me that that was supposed to be for a radio, because most of the things that I'm looking at nowadays are, you know, they're advanced designs, and everybody's got touch screens and stuff like that. I wasn't expecting to have that on there. I don't know whose idea that was, but they could have cheerfully left that off. I wouldn't have cared at all if that was gone.
It feels like a feature for baby boomers who are used to lots of dials and turns and knobs, and it reminds me a lot of a smartphone with a stylus. You know, some people are going to use it, and some people are going to like it, but overall, you can do a lot more if you just remove the buttons and you make everything an interface on the touch screen. It just seemed unnecessary. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall with discussions internally with Ford, going back and forth, because I'm sure there's some people that really fought hard for just a clean touch screen with no button interface, and then there are some that said, oh, we got to have this because we can't have the drivers looking away from the road. We got to be able to adjust things that way.
I'm going to guess right now, because like I say, I used to work at Ford and I know kind of what happens, but I'm going to guess that that was an executive who didn't feel like anyone was paying enough attention to him or her, and said, we got to have that. And they think that they're, you know, kind of like an artiste or avant-garde or something like that. I don't know, but they thought, oh, now I've got something. Now we can be happy. Boom, look at that dial. That's me. Oh. And that's kind of like, I've seen that so many times. I mean it. So if somebody from Ford watches this that knows that maybe was that fly on the wall, they'll have a good laugh over it, because I know that that's what kind of happened. It's not, no artist is going to do that. There's no way. The artists, the stylists at Ford, I mean, they must have been dancing in the street when they got rid of the door handles. And I'm hoping that they're going to get rid of the wing mirrors or the mirrors on the door. That's the next thing that's got to go. We don't even need those damn things. Who the heck's looking in a mirror? If I want to see in back of me, I want to look at the screen, or if I want to look at maybe a bigger rear view mirror that tells me all a wraparound of what's going on in my car. Not that thing. That thing's always at, and by the way, how many times you've been zipping along the expressway, you look over and some fool has pulled in your wing mirror, you didn't notice it when you got in, and those things are useless. They're a remnant of the past that should be eliminated as soon as possible. And it'd be cheaper too. It'd be cheaper to put a couple more cameras in than it would be to have those. And the other thing, you pay for that every day. Every day, that's mileage down the drain, because those things are nothing but aero drag. So.
Yeah, my understanding is that European agencies have permitted removing those side mirrors, but I think the holdup is U.S. agencies, and that's why we haven't seen them. You know, anytime you see a rendering of a new design, it doesn't include the mirrors.
Right.
And even for when Tesla came out with their vehicles, they had cameras. So they've been thinking about this for ages, but my guess is it's the regulatory bodies here in the U.S. that are slow to adapt.
Well, I can guarantee you, there's 30 guys in Washington that are in charge of wing mirrors. I guarantee it. There's 30 guys that are saying, well, if we take that off, I'm not going to keep a job anymore. That's what happens when you get government basically determining whether or not you need a mirror stuck on the side of your door. They don't, but you're not going to get rid of it because 30 guys will lose their job.
There's also something else that I would probably change, and I did recommend this in my video. It's the start-stop button. As a Tesla driver who's nearly 240,000 miles behind the wheel of my Model S, I got into the Mach-E, and the drive park dial is in the middle console, and I put my foot on the brake and I put my hand to the dial to put it into drive, but it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
And that's because I haven't pressed the start button. And so this was another thing that I just thought was unnecessary and redundant. Why not just remove the start and have the car recognize that you're not only sitting in the seat, but putting your foot on the brake, and allow that to be the series that allows you to put that car into drive. So that, I don't know if I ever got used to that. And then I would put the car in park, get out of the car,
and it wouldn't turn off.
it would never shut down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and it wouldn't lock either. And so I had to walk back and get in the car and press the stop button, and then it would shut down. So, as someone who I would consider myself an early adopter of technology, that just seemed like something that was an antiquated part in the car that they really just don't need.
So when just before I got into the Mach-E, somebody was asking me. We had one of our guys built a Cobra AC, and so I had driven it around. It's a fabulous car. I mean, it's just like the race car. It has a faster engine in it, and it's a little probably quicker than what the AC was in its day. But I'll tell you what, it's a great drive. So I got out and I was talking about, I had a Morgan Super Sport, and I was talking about how you had to start the car, the Morgan Super Sport, with a push button. You put in the key, turned it, and then and people who weren't used to what was going on, they would have an issue. That issue was that they couldn't get it started. So you had to get in the car, sit down, turn the key, and then in back of the instrument panel, because it was just a chunk of wood, in back of the instrument panel, you pushed the start button, and away it went. When I got into the Mach-E, I sat down, closed the door. I did exactly the same thing. I reached down. What the hell? They got a brake or something on here? And I'm looking around and I see the little light glowing. And I'd already had the experience, which everybody said, well, you should have looked at the glowing mauve light or whatever. What, are you kidding me? Now I'm looking for a glowing light. I looked at the screen, it's not there. And then I looked, and here's this little button flashing at me. I pushed it, and little noises came out and whatnot, and now I'm happy. I can move now.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. Those are really small critiques, but I think that they could actually have some big impacts. And again, I'm really curious to see what you come up with cost-wise, parts-wise, and how much would those two things save? That dial on the touch screen and removing the start-stop, will it have a significant impact? Who knows? I guess we'll find out.
Oh, it'd be about that dial, probably all in with tooling and whatever. It's probably worth about $6 because it has to be assembled and on and on and on. And then the push button, probably about $1.50, something like that, after you're all in. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But you you don't find something inside of a car that's worth $10,000 and you can instantly take it right out. But you do find things that come in nickels and dimes. And like when we trained the guys in China on car design, and they were doing EVs from the time that I got over there until 2019, which I never went back to. So I can tell you that I told them that the real problem was, the real big problem was weight. You have to get rid of as much weight as you possibly can. Okay, fine. So how do we do that? How do we make things happen that way? Well, the easiest way is don't put the weight in. And so consequently what we did was we had a little rule. And the rule was every engineer, 1 gram every day. A gram's not much. But you know what? It adds up. Over and over and over again, it adds up. So you look at the push buttons and the little dial. How many grams there? Quite a few. And then you look at the wires that go to them. Oh, more. Oh, and then you look at on and on and on. So that's the kind of stuff, even the bezel and whatnot, all those things can disappear. All of them have weight. Weight equals range. Simple as that. So for me, getting rid of stuff that the customer doesn't need or want, I mean, that's kind of like what you're supposed to do as an engineer. You're supposed to thrift that stuff out. If it doesn't have value, if it doesn't represent value to the customer, it has no value. Get rid of it. And to me, those are a couple of things that could go. But I will tell you one thing for sure. That Mach-E compared to the ID.4, it's like night and day. I think, like I've been told, I haven't checked this out yet. I don't know how to check it out. That Tesla had 80% of the market share. 80% of the market share last year, and now they have 70% or something like that, and that Ford has, the Mach-E has gobbled up 10%, and I can see why. If I had a choice between, if I said, oh, I'm not going to drive a Tesla, I'm a Tesla hater. Okay, which one do you pick? There's no brains needed for this. The VW, I think what they tried to do was make it easy for those boomers who haven't progressed a whole lot. They tried to make it as good for them as they could possibly make it. But to me, it was confusing. It didn't look like anything I was looking for. And then when I got into the Mach-E, okay, there was some stuff that I didn't care for, but it was in the minority, and it was easy to sort out. I mean, I don't know if you saw it. When I got in there, okay, how do I get to the maps? Come on, I don't care what my tire pressure is. I don't care about that. Where's my maps? And I looked around and says Auburn Hills. That must be it. Boom, one touch, boom, done. Everything's ready to go. I like things that are kind of intuitive. And again, Ford obviously benchmarked. They obviously went and looked at what was Tesla, which is the world leader, find out what it is, find out from the older folks, I guess. Being an old folk, I feel somehow like I'm discriminating against myself or something. But anyway, find out what the old folks like and what they don't like, put that in, take that out. And that's kind of like, that's what they did. They did a good job. If my brother got into one of those, who's, he's been a pickup truck guy his whole life, and I said, hey, can you drive it? Well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. And I think he'd be in it like in a heartbeat. In the VW, too many things going on. He would lose interest in a hurry, and I'm going back to my truck. Thanks. So.
My experience with the software was okay, but it was a clean look, which I liked, but the responsiveness of the screen lacked. It was better than what I saw at the LA Auto Show in 2019, but significantly better, but still laggy. And you tap a feature and then it'd be just a slight delay.
Yeah.
And where Ford shines through with its manufacturing and build quality, I think they show their immaturity in software, whereas I think Tesla is just the reverse. Their software is, in my opinion, the best in the automotive industry. I haven't seen anything better. And it's not just the responsiveness, but it's also the intuitiveness of it.
Yeah.
The user experience is just it's excellent. Even for my older 2013 Model S, it's still really great. And what they've been able to do with the software for these slower processors in the older vehicles, it's still very, very good. So and the features seem to be a little bit buried as well. It took a little while for me to find features that I actually wanted and needed. This is something that I did call out in my video in terms of charging experience with the touchscreen. It was very, very difficult to navigate or find fast charging stations. The screen gave me all charging stations, but I don't care about the 50 kilowatt speeds. What I want is 100 to 150. I want to max that out because I want to spend as little time as possible charging the vehicle. And that was something that either did not exist or I didn't find it and it was too hard and unintuitive to find.
Ford needs to think about maybe they should have a relationship with somebody, or maybe what they should do is what Tesla did. Put in your own charging stations. Make a few bucks. Because, I mean, it's the difference between selling razors and razor blades, right? I want to sell razor blades. I don't want to sell razors.
The ironic thing, Sandy, is that they do have an agreement with Electrify America. I'm certain, and I'm looking this up now in real time. They do have a relationship with Electrify America, which would seem like it would address that issue that you just don't have in a Tesla. And you're right. All you have to do in the Tesla is enter in the end destination, and it only serves you the fastest charging experience possible. I struggled so much with the charging experience with the Ford that I ended up using the PlugShare app on my phone, a third-party charging app. So the good news is that it does get over-the-air software updates, and so I would assume that someone at Ford is watching this video and can take that and improve that with over-the-air software updates to improve that experience for owners.
Well, I'm hoping they are, but we'll have to wait and see. I don't think Ford watches Munro Live, but they may be watching your channel. So, Sean, I'm told that we're about ready to wrap up. So I just want to let everybody know that at the bottom of your screen right now, you're going to see Sean Mitchell's channel. And I appreciate it if you come there and have a look and see his stuff. So finally, I'd just like to say thank you again. Any final comments? Any wrap-up words on the Mach-E?
Yeah. First, I'd like to say thanks again for the invitation to come on your channel and talk about the Mach-E. My channel, I try to encompass all electric vehicles. I am a Tesla owner. I do have some ties to Tesla, but I try as best as possible to give an unbiased opinion. I think the Mach-E is a great car, a great overall car. I think for people that don't want a Tesla or are brand loyal to Ford or just want an overall good pass at an electric SUV, the Mach-E is a good one to at least go and test drive. Is the overall offering better than the Model Y, Tesla's Model Y? In my personal opinion, I still think the Model Y, when you factor everything in, I still think that it beats out the Mach-E, but that's what competition is great for. It's great to spur one another on, and I hope that Ford continues to iterate on the vehicle. But overall, I was very happy with the experience.
Well, I'm just happy that another American company actually cranked out a vehicle that I can proudly say I used to wear a blue oval. So for me, it's been nothing but happiness. Like I said, came in expecting the worst, and I wound up walking out the door happy as a clam when we let it go. And now we're going to be analyzing it. We'll check out that cost for you, and we'll let you know in advance of everybody else where we think the cost might be. So again, thank you very much. Make sure you tune into Sean's channel, and oh yeah, and then of course we have the cashiers. Please keep tipping those guys. They're risking their lives every day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks, Sean. Bye-bye.